Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome to some new deck profiles looking at the Paldeon Evolved format. And I thought we'd kick it off by looking at Gardevior EX and Drifloon. I know we're a while away from them being released in English, so I thought we'd just showcase some of the decks which are performing well in Japan. So this is right now pretty much dominating to be one of the BDIFs by being 25% of the top 8 meta in week 1, week 2 going down to 15% as we showcased a couple of days ago. So you could say it's about 20% of the top 8, which is very, very high numbers, with an staggering being in 31 finals. So that's nearly half the finals, which is insane. Utilizing not the single prizes to win the game, but it is a stage 2. You do lose to Path because of Psychic Embrace, and potentially you could be a bit slower due to that sort of factor. And potentially another limit you could potentially say is Champions Festival, which could really sort of limit the player due to how much they cost. So let's break down a little bit of a list, which I think could potentially do well. And as you look at this right now, you can see there's no rare candy because I'm going for a more slower approach to sort of this list, because I feel like this is where this deck can really kind of try and shine. I know you're not really going for the turn 2 sort of Shine Arcana, but this list could potentially go to the turn 3 and still work just as strong. We play a 3-1 line of the Rolts. The other Rolts is really, really powerful to stop the opponent from using cards like Alolan Vulpix. And because we're going a bit slower, we can afford to go to 3-1 line of Curlier. The Mirage Step is incredibly well placed in this format right now, due to the fact that you can immediately flood the board state with the rest of your Curliers and use the Gardevoir, and potentially if they get knocked out later on, you can use cards like Clara or even Super Rod to get them back into sort of a deck. We also then play the 3 copies of Gardevoir EX, the really good Psychic Embrace ability, 2 copies of Shine Arcana Gardevoir. I really love this sort of card right now. I think it's an incredibly powerful archetype, really, really strong to get the extra 2 draw, which you might need, and attach energies to your Pokemon in play to do those big 60 damage plus 30 for each Psychic energies in play, very similar to Zacian V, which is like this one over here. We also play 1 copy of the Gallade. I think the Gallade is really good because you can utilize Iona, kind of like looping it back and forth, or getting the boss's orders you might potentially need, or Clara, so you can get that Curlier out next turn. And like I said, the big poster child right now is 2 copies of Drifloon, the big damage output, which you can do to do potentially 300 damage if it's got 5 energy attached with the new tool card attached. We also play some other supporting cards like Cresselia, and then Mew to get some of the item cards you might need, Greninja to get the energies and discard pile, and Manaphy to protect your Curliers. Overall, this is a very slick sort of line for Pokemon. There are ways to cut around it, and I'm going to go around that just after I finish talking about it. Because we play loads of one-off supporters, because you play a lot of your drawing aspect with Gardevoir and Curliers, we play 1 copy of Palpad so you can get utilized the Ionas, the boss's orders, or potentially workers. Rest of them would play Super Rod to get back any of your energies or Pokemon we might need. Ball search cards, the rest of them are all of these ones, like 3 copies of Level Ball to get any of the Curlies and Rolts, and even Drifloons we might potentially need. Fog Crystal to get the energies, as well as 3 Ultra Balls to get any Pokemon we might need, and 4 Battle VIP Pass to get the optimal setup. I think Gardevoir really struggles if we can't get that setup. So if we flood the board state with many energies as possible, Pokemon as possible, we can be in a really good spot. Supporter-wise, we do play 1 copy of Clara, Avery, Researcher, and Worker, sorry. These are really good to kind of be accessing some draw aspects, disrupt the opponent, as well as get any of the Gardevoirs or energies you might potentially need. 2 copies of Boss's Orders. I think this is a deck exactly the right card we need. Right now, to be as disruptive as possible, as I've talked about many times before, Boss is so much more superior than Serena right now. The Pokemons aren't as prevalent as they have once been. We're seeing a lot more increase of these EX-style decks of single-price Pokemon. So Boss's Orders is so much stronger than guaranteeing just Vs. But we also play 4 copies of Iona. Because we're not playing the rare candy, we're going a little bit of the slower route. We might potentially be 1 or 2 prizes down in the first few turns, so you can really be disrupted by spamming Iona to really limit the opponent getting set up. And the stadium cards. Obviously, we are not playing Champions Festival. That's a lot of money and potentially could help this deck a lot more. We play 1 copy of the Izoma and 1 copy of Collapse Stadium. One of them gets any basic Pokemon you might need, which is in a rule box, and the other one limits opponent's bench side. We can get rid of the highly damaged Pokemon on our side, or potentially limit the opponent by getting rid of the Pokemon they really need. Like I said, the thing which is amazing about Drifloon, we also play 1 copy of that Cape of Toughness reprint. Getting that extra 50 HP is really, really strong, and this could even be attached to Manaphy's, Cresselia, and Zacian V, which can really protect them from cards like Saberline. And the card which I love about this, which makes Gallade and Gardevoir so much stronger, is Reversal Energy, which is basically 3 energies of 1 to any of your evolved Pokemon if you're behind in prizes, which is what this deck likes to kind of do by playing a much more slow approach, and then 10 copies of Psychic Energies. I think this is a really, really powerful archetype. This list is very similar to a list that did win in the first weekend, which didn't actually run rare candies. There are ways which you could potentially cut around it. You could limit like the draw aspect like Muse, potentially limit any of the cards like Palpad to really add that space, potentially 1 or 2 rare candies. But because you're playing a high count of Iona and the reversal energy, you want to be a bit behind to deal a load more damage to have a much stronger late game. Then your matchups are pretty positive overall. I would say you have a pretty good Lost Tina matchup as well as the Arceus Tina as well. Because they also sometimes might be a little bit slower in that sort of aspect, you can really capitalize by using cards like Drifloon and Gardevoir to use these single prize attackers into these amazing sort of decks. Rapid Strike is a bit of a problem by doing loads of bench sniping, but you can get those one-hit KOs where hitting for weakness on your Urshifu VMAXs. And also Lugia single strike is pretty positive. Yes, you could go a little bit further behind, but because you're going a bit further behind, you can use single prize attackers to really utilize and get those big one-hit KOs. Negative, I do think Mew and Ability Lock is really, really detrimental and really weak in this sort of list. Yes, we play Worker and 2 copies of Stadium, but because of that sort of aspect, we can really slow down our sort of game plan by not getting as much as possible, whereas Mew can really overrun us by constantly streaming these huge high HP attackers, which actually Drifloon, because we're not playing Champions Festival, does not get the one-hit KO on it. And then finally, Lost Box, because they're single prize attackers going into us, they could potentially go a little bit farther ahead and go ahead in that sort of aspect. So overall, I think this is a very positive Gardevoir list. Definitely something to be considered about. As you saw a couple of days ago, I did release a video about why Champions Festival could potentially be banned or warranted one. And I kind of made my argument on that sort of way. I think this is showing a list which doesn't need Champions Festival, but if you want a more consistent list, I would definitely recommend adding a Champions Festival, cutting potentially some of your consistency cards to get room for rare candy to try and get your Gardevoirs out as quickly as possible to get those big one-hit KOs with Drifloon. But I hope you've enjoyed this kind of little taster to see how strong Gardevoir can be, and no doubt about it, I'm going to post an updated list before the format gets released over at NAIC Set. If you're new, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below if this is a Gardevoir list that you want to try out. My name is Charlie TCG, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Bye for now.